Imagine jogging the block you grew up on, and a stranger steps from the shadows with his hand already too close to a gun, tells you you don't belong here, and suddenly your own street feels like a checkpoint you never signed up for. That was Summers Creek on a warm evening, porch lights blinking on like stars. My breath easy, my guard down. Then a man named Brent decided he was the law, and I was a problem. Yeah, that happened. And the only reason we're not talking about yellow tape today is because I chose calm when he chose pride. My name's Marcus Hale. 30 years old, home from out of state, to eat my mom's too peppery roast chicken and pretend I was off duty from a life where patience keeps you breathing. Special Forces doesn't make you fearless, it makes you precise. Control your pace, control your outcome. And that's all I wanted on Cottonwood Lane, a slow run under a peach sky. The sprinkler hiss, the sound of my shoes on pavement. I turned the corner by the Hendersons' old place, and there he was, between an SUV and a recycling bin, a pistol riding his hip like a merit badge. He ordered online a laminated HOA card hanging from a lanyard, like it meant something. "What are you doing here?" he said, not curious. "Just charged." "Evening," I answered, "because you test for exits before you test yourself. Just jogging my folks live on Cottonwood." His fingers brushed the grip 2 inches from a decision you don't walk back from. "Private neighborhood," he said. "Name, address now." I kept my hands where he could see them. Shoulders loose, voice lower than his, so he had to lean in with ego to hear me. Marcus Hale. Ruth and Daniel's boy. Brown brick house with the maple out front. White mailbox, ask anyone. He looked me up and down like he was shopping for a reason to be right, and landed on the oldest one he could reach. "You don't look like you live here. You know what I mean?" The sentence that says what it won't say out loud. Years of training don't erase the flash of heat you get when someone decides your face is a threat. They just give you a way through it. "Sir," I said, "I'm going to stand right here, hands open. No surprises. You're worked up. I'm not a threat. Let's be neighbors for 20 seconds, and this ends like a Tuesday." Doubt crossed his eyes and vanished by I'd shoved it out. Then a voice I knew barked from a porch rent. "That's Marcus Mrs. Whitaker in a robe with tiny sailboats. Terrier vibrating at her ankles. Ruth's boy." He fixed my Wi-Fi. He didn't turn his head, didn't want to admit the world existed beyond the scene he was directing, ma'am. "I've got this under control," he said, which is what people say right before they prove they don't. Across the street, Trevor lifted his phone, the screen glow catching his face. Calm as a reporter. "I'm calling the real cops," he said, and the word real hung in the air like a choice. That's when the block woke up. Blinds tilted. A screen door squeaked. Mr. Patel stepped onto his lawn. In socks, with a hose still running a half moon on the concrete. And I felt the danger double, not just the gun, but the audience. Not just the audience, but his pride. "Look at me," I told Brent, centering him like you do with someone spiraling. You point that gun at a neighbor, you won't come back from it. He tried to stand taller than his story. Jaw tight, throat pulsing, then snapped. Metal scraped. Leather gasps jumped from 3 porches. The terrier yipped like an alarm. Trevor's camera wobbled and steadied, because even the guy filming could feel the hinge of it. I didn't move. Stillness isn't surrender. Stillness is a tactic. Palms open, fingers spread, eyes on his. My voice cut through like a lane line. "If you point that at me, you're gambling with your life, not mine, because when those sirens turn onto Cottonwood, and they are turning, they won't negotiate with your pride. Far off at first, then closer. The wail arrived, and I watched the math happen on his face. Authority, he imagined, versus reality that didn't care. He swung the barrel toward Trevor for a blink, and back to me, which told me everything about his discipline. None. And Mama Patel, bless that man, said the calmest sentence in Georgia. Put the gun down, you'll regret this more than you can imagine. You don't tell me what to do. Brent snapped, but the snap carried fear, not power. The cruiser turned the corner and bathed the shutters in red, blue-red, two officers stepping out with practiced voices. Drop the weapon now. And I knew we were down to seconds. Listen to me, I said to Brent, as if we were the only two people on the street. They will not hesitate. You twitch that finger, and you die on this sidewalk in front of Mrs. Whitaker's robe and Trevor's camera and your own front window. Is that the clip you want your kids to see when they Google your name? He flinched, not at kids at Google, because in Twiv your reputation breaks faster than glass. I softened. Not smaller, just human. You say you're protecting this place, then protect them from watching a man die. Protect your family from losing you to a headline. His shoulders sagged an inch. The gun dipped. Pride tried one last comeback and shoved it up. The officer's tone sharpened. Last warning. And I tied the knot. You're not in control anymore. Never were. But you can still walk away with your life intact. The sprinkler clicked off like a stage cue. The street held its breath, and the pistol slid out of his grip and clattered to the asphalt with a sound I swear you could feel in your teeth. The officers moved. The bag came out. The cuffs clicked. Neighbors exhaled like they'd been underwater, and for a second it felt over. Pride doesn't leave quietly. As they walked him to the car, he twisted and said the line that's been hurled at me since middle school, just with more venom. You don't belong here. I looked at the officer at Mrs. Whitaker's porch, at Mr. Patel's wet socks, then back at him and said the truth without volume. I bled for this country. I belong. They shut the door on his echo. Statements, case numbers. Trevor handing over the video, the block coming apart in murmurs. Relief, anger, shame, and my parents pulling to the curb too fast. My mom taking attendance with her hands on my face, my shoulders like she could will the night out of my skin. I'm all right, I told her, and I was. But you carry nights like that in places people can't see. Morning came with scooters and lawn mowers, and a chorus of whispers at mailboxes, and the video found its way into group chats, and the Summers Creek Exchange, where people hunt for lost packages, and also apparently moral high ground. Some folks typed that Brent snapped some typed, that I must have provoked him, because nobody draws a gun for nothing, which if you've lived anywhere except a bubble, you know is wishful thinking. By noon, the HOA called an emergency meeting, and if you've never stood in a room where a community has to decide whether it loves order more than people, it sounds like this. We didn't know, versus we knew he acted alone, versus we let him play cop. It's not our fault, versus it's not only his. Mrs. Whitaker stood with the terrier in a tote like a kid in church and said the sentence that cut cleaner than any speech. We fed him with our silence, and Mrs. Patel added, "He's responsible for what he did. We're responsible for what we allowed." I wasn't going to speak. I don't like being the headline in a room that still has to live with itself. But some truths you owe the block that raised you. I told them what the job taught me the hard way. Restraint is strength. Discipline is strength. A gun isn't strength. A lanyard isn't strength, power. Without control is just danger waiting for an audience. and a guy in a golf shirt muttered something about protecting rules. So I asked him which one exactly says point a loaded gun at a neighbor who's jogging. Silence has a temperature, and that room got cold. The board promised policy reviews, volunteer removals, more patrols by people with actual training. And the meeting ended, not with applause, but with that heavy relief you feel after the truth lands, and nobody can pretend the room is the same. That night, I sat on my parents' porch and looked down the same stretch of cottonwood where a pistol met pavement, and thought about belonging. How we treat it like a reward when it should be a right. How we give benefit of the doubt to some faces and warnings to others. How easy it is to laugh at a man playing sheriff until the costume gets a live weapon. You want a victory? Here's mine. Nobody died. The officers went home. The kids rode their scooters. Even Brent lived to face what he did in court instead of on a t-shirt. And I'll take that. But I won't bow tie it, because a clean ending lets people skip the itch they need to feel. So tell me this in the comments. Where's the line between safety and control? For you, who gets seen as a neighbor first and a suspect second in your world. And if you were on that sidewalk, would you have spoken up? Record, kept your voice steady. When someone else's hand shook. Share what you think is right or wrong here. Push back if you need to tell me what you've witnessed on your block. And yeah, tell me where you're watching from, because the next conversation we have might be the one that keeps your street quiet when it matters.